Good afternoon. Today's press conference is to do with the recent police-involved collisions. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Stephen Corbishley. Commissioner.
Good afternoon. I've decided to come to you today and make a short press conference and also answer some questions around my recognition to public and media concern about a recent selection of collisions involving police vehicles. Certainly over the past couple of months, there's been a concerning rise in the number of collisions that have taken place. And to reassure the public, those are being investigated thoroughly and will be transparently presented in due course. It's often frustrating because the information that I know is not necessarily the information that I can at the moment provide to the public, but I want to seek reassurance from our communities that we are taking the matter seriously and each investigation is being properly addressed. We are also recognising some of the things that perhaps we need to look at in regards to standards of our driving. And I've today announced across the service that we're going to do a review of driver training to look at the refresher activity that we put in place to make sure our officers drive to the highest standards and professionally, but also look at some of the opportunities that we can take forward. One of which is the way in which we manage demand, the way in which we respond to calls from the public, and also identify whether or not we need to send police cars with blue lights and sirens to each and every call that comes into us. The most important issue is that we provide a first-class service to anybody who contacts us, but that also can be provided by the telephone, or indeed it can be provided by other partners, or also we can provide an appointment time for members of the public to receive attendance by a police officer. We take the matter very seriously. Of course, it's very concerning what's taken place over the past couple of weeks, but I do reassure people that both the BPS take this matter very seriously and we're reviewing it, but also we continue 365 days a year to provide a first-class service to everybody in Bermuda. I'm happy to take some questions.
How many collisions involving BPS staff have there been within the last, let's say, 3 months?
Gary, I can't answer that question to you directly. I haven't got that information to hand, but I can provide that offline to you. But certainly there are 4 cases that concern me most over the past couple of months, one of which we know was the tragic fatality that took place a couple of months ago involving a police collision, and that matter is ongoing and being investigated. But we also know some other events, such as the motorcycle collision with a US tourist on the day of Carnival, and we also had a collision in the town involving a colleague from the Bermuda regiment. So, as I say, I'll come back to that data. I mean, my own assessment is that the recent spate has compounded perhaps some of the perceptions around this, and that's not to dismiss the importance of looking into matters, but unfortunately collisions do take place involving police vehicles. And that's not to dismiss the importance of finding out why and learning from each, but comparative to last year, other than the past couple of months, it's been pretty standard in regards to what we've seen.
The last incident involving the visitor from the US, we understand that the DPS foot the bill, I think an $18,000 bill to have that person medevac out of the island. Any indication as to how much, is there an overall figure or an estimate as to the number, as to the cost that's been attributed to these numerous traffic collisions?
Well, let me just take the first point, which was a decision to pay. It was $19,000 to medevac the US lady to receive treatment. I mean, that decision was taken on humanitarian grounds. Unfortunately, her insurance didn't cover the provision to take her to the States to receive treatment. And it was absolutely essential she did receive treatment in regards to the injury that she suffered to her leg. And I'm very pleased with the updates I've been receiving over the past few days in regards to how she's responding to that treatment. The decision by the BPS at that time was not to actually make it on the basis of responsibility or fault. And we took some legal advice from the Attorney General's office to guide us in our decision, but it was the right leadership to take in support of a young lady that had obviously been injured, and obviously that matter is ongoing in regards to investigation. In regards to the wider point in regards to costs, Of course, if a police vehicle is involved in a collision, it's got a monetary cost to repair. But also the other thing that concerns me is it's one less vehicle off the road to be able to provide service. And of course, we have a limited fleet, and it's essential we have every single vehicle on the road. But what we do is that we train drivers to perform professionally, not to take risks. My direction to each and every police officer who drives a car or a motorcycle in the BPS is that they should attend safely. It's not about speed, it's about getting there safe to deal with the issue at hand. And we're refreshing those clear messages because I don't want officers feeling under pressure that they have to get there at all costs, because that puts them at risk, it puts other road users at risk, but most importantly it's about getting to people and supporting them, particularly when they contact us for a response.
So no definite idea as to the cost of these incidents, bearing in mind that the Bermuda taxpayers who's going to have to foot the bill since the government finances the Bermuda Police Service.
And I'm very cognizant of that, Gary, and I'm very cognizant of how we manage our budget. And part of, obviously, the lessons and review that we've now put in place is to not just mitigate but reduce these type of collisions. Because, as I say, if we can avoid them, that allows us to use our budget elsewhere.
Just to assist you in the question that they asked, it's been 6 accidents with police vehicles. My question was, the family of the young lady on the high-speed chase, which was struck just on King Street, had asked for assistance in getting her sent overseas, and your department, I don't know if it was you, denied it. Why was that? And you came straight to assisting the
Okay.
US.
There's a couple of points that you raised there, Trevor. Firstly, you say 6. I've highlighted 4 very serious ones that concern me, one of which is
So
the particular... Yeah,
particularly.
that's fine. But when I refer to 4, it was obviously some of the more serious injury, one of which is a matter you refer to. I was not aware that we'd offered any refusal. And obviously, I can take that away and look into it. I think the only point that I do recognise is the situation that you describe is different to the one with the US tourists who simply could not afford, under their insurance, to be medevaced to the United States. But that's not to say that we've walked away and not supported our colleague. We've engaged, as we would do with anybody involved in a police collision. We put in place family liaison. We're very clear in regards to what's going to be done. We have very professional traffic investigators who are able to identify through a full range of forensic research the speed of a vehicle, the way in which it's approached, and actually be able to attribute fault. So there is no stones left unturned. And there's no cover-up. And of course, police officers are accountable for their actions, and that may be in a court or it may be through conduct. So this is not to say that the BPS are ignoring these issues. They're important issues, and if accountability and blame is there and it comes our way, then we'll accept it. But it's most important to learn from it and move forward.
Commissioner, if I could, what do you attribute, whether it be 4 or 6, or the recent spate of crashes, what do you attribute them to?
Well, it's tempting to use the word unfortunate, but the reason why I raise that is that, unfortunately, the situation with policing, which, as you well understand, is 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, presents a level of risk. It presents a level of risk in regards to vehicles on the road attending calls, and obviously we want to get to calls quickly and safely to protect victims. And we've had a series over the past couple of months which have come in quite quick succession, and obviously it's raised questions that we need to look at around the standard of our driver training. But certainly I'm not at a point where I'm going to turn around and suggest the service is in crisis. It's not. We take driving police vehicles very professionally, and we have very, very experienced officers that are driving around in our vehicles, on our motorbikes, around Bermuda at this very moment, and we have very, very good training. But we need to actually look at some of the fundamental factors, some of the cause issues, where the accident took place, the responsibility, the actual road conditions at that particular time. And when those facts are established, that's the time to start drawing some conclusions, and that's the time to actually understand what's taken place, not perhaps make some judgments on very limited information.
You mentioned responsibility. In any of the, I guess, 4 incidents that you've highlighted, has there been yet any repercussions for the officers involved, or do you foresee repercussions forthcoming? And if so, what kind of actions are you looking at?
An investigation takes time. I mean, certainly if you're investigating the matter involving the loss of a young man's life a couple of months ago, that's a highly complex investigation where not just the initial scene management, there's CCTV investigation, there's witnesses, and indeed some of you will be aware that we were looking for a second witness and continue to look for a second witness in that regard. Also, our vehicles are fitted with technology that we send overseas where we can actually analyse the behaviour of the driver during that particular incident and also right the way through the shift, and that takes time to receive. I'm not one that blames people without actually facts. I'm not one that places repercussions on people until I know facts. So all those investigations are ongoing, and at a point when we actually know the facts, then we can make judgment in regards to responsibility.
Are you looking at examining really an officer abandoned in high-speed chase in which it might, for instance, the incident where the vehicle was going up the wrong way? Are you looking at the policy in that area?
Yeah, I mean, when you actually start looking at urgent driving, whether it be to go to a call or to pursue somebody, there is a number of different risk factors that are not just managed by the actual driver, but they're managed by our ComOps department and the duty inspector at that time. And if the risk becomes too great, particularly in regards to resulting potential impact on other road users, we do stop a collision. No collision is worth pursuing at the expense of somebody else's safety.
The current driver training program, how long has it been in existence?
Well, certainly, Gary, it's one I've inherited when I came in as Commissioner. We are looking, and certainly there's meetings going on at the moment with the driver trainers to have them involved in the process in relation to areas that we can improve, looking at the way in which we can refresh driver training and actually apply some key messages. Policing is a learning environment, so if there are improvements to be made, we won't rest on our laurels and we'll actually take those forward.
No idea as to how long the current program has been.
Well, I don't understand your question really, Gary. What do you mean by the current programme?
I'm sure that there's a set...
Driver training for
training, there's a certain set of parameters.
yeah, driver training is...
And how long have those been in the current...
I mean, certainly driver training in the modern sort of police age has been well established. And of course, policies change, guidance changes, and we'll implement those as we go forward. But there's no one start and end fixed period to a driver training programme. It's one that evolves all the time. And this is an opportunity for it to evolve again, because if there are lessons to be learned, we'll take them on board to improve our services.
But surely there are certain fundamentals that would be in place for a given period of time or have formed the basis for the training?
Well, the fundamental training, certainly around the way in which a police officer drives their vehicle, the way in which they will stop a vehicle, control stops, the way in which they will pursue a vehicle, the way in which they'll travel on urgent speed is well established in policy, training and guidance. And of course, the point very much raised by Trevor is sometimes the decision making by officers is one that we need to give them support about. I don't want a culture in the BPS where at all costs we have to pursue somebody. It's about judgment, it's around public safety. And if an individual officer decides that the risk is too high and they have to stop driving in a particular way, I will fully support them in that regard.
My last question. In these recent accidents, have you any detail on statistics on the age or the maturity of the officer?
No, it's broad and gender changes as well. We can't say it's, I don't know, a mid-20s male officer is more likely to have been involved in this. I mean, the BPS is diverse, and the collisions that we've had, the data's diverse, and that's why it's quite a complex issue, and that's why I raise the point around us doing a review, because if we don't actually look into every fundamental, then we won't identify any lessons learned. And of course, as the investigations progress, that will give us indicators about things we need to respond to, or we may not, because the point that I will raise is that sometimes it's very easy to judge the circumstances of collision without knowing the facts, and whilst I don't criticise the media for reporting what they know at this present stage, sometimes some of the optics are not exactly in line with the reality of what's taken place.
Have any of the investigations been completed, and if so, what has been?
No, they're still ongoing, Gary, and certainly if we go back to the fatal collision that I mentioned, that's ongoing, and the other matters are ongoing. But I'm receiving regular updates as the Commissioner. Certainly Mr Weeks, as the the Assistant Commissioner in charge of Uniform Operations, is very much involved with what's taking place.
With regard to the fatal, was the officer authorized to drive? Was the officer driving outside the limit for which she was authorized?
I'm going to answer that. She was driving as an authorised driver within her limits.
Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.